For me, always been a get better mentality every day, grow every day, be a better leader every day, be a better quarterback every day. And when that rent's due, I don't plan on missing no payments. So it's work.
What's up, everybody? It's Wednesday night, 9:15. That means one thing, all about the Birds weekly report. And we're back. The Sixers season is over, unfortunately. We get to move off from that, and we get to get back to what we know and love to talk about best, Philadelphia Eagles football. Go Birds is back. That is the center of attention again. We are 5 weeks out from training camp beginning, which means it's time to really dive down deep into this team and everything that's going to go on this season. We are brought to you by Manscaped. As always, AAT Birds is the promo code there for 20% off. Your balls will thank you. 99jerseys.com. It's AAT Birds 20 for 20% off on their thing. And we'll get some of our other sponsors as the show goes on. But like I said, what's up, everybody? If you're tuning in, Facebook, Twitter, make sure you're clicking share, retweet, turning your notifications on. If you're on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button. The crew is here. We got Johnny Uleka, Johnny U9322. We got Jeff Warner at Jeff Warner NFL as he's down there sharing away and doing what he does down there. And I am Phil Stiefel at Beard and Knowledge. So we haven't had an Eagles show in a little while because we've been so focused on Sixers postseason. So I thought we kind of have to recap and bring everything that we've been doing this offseason together into a package. Then we've got a whole list of shows this offseason, the next 5 to 10 weeks before the season starts to really get ready. So the question I came up with for tonight is a true-false statement. And the statement is the Eagles are moving in the right direction. Is it a true or false statement? Now, we'll get into details specifically and different things. But, Johnny, when you hear that statement, the Eagles are moving in the right direction, do you think that's a true or a false statement?
I would say it's a true statement. We've talked about them getting younger, and to be able to, not just rely on free agents and veteran free agents. And you're starting to see them kind of doing that. To be able to, the last 2 drafts, they had a bunch of draft picks. Now, they may not all pan out, but they are going into that direction of getting younger and, basically flipping the script here on hoping that they can get guys that are going to be the next veterans to then in the coming years. So for me, I think it is the right direction.
Jeff, is it a true statement that they're moving in the right direction? Because Richard's checking in saying false. As long as Howie's still in charge, that it'll never be the right direction.
I'm going to have to agree with them. Look, and I'm blaming it on Howie. Yes, I agree with Johnny. They're making moves to try to get younger. They're trying to build towards the future. They're trying to do this, and they finally, in the first time in years, actually make the right first-round selection, the selection that we all wanted here in the city of Philadelphia. But We don't know if that was the right move. We don't know if Devontae Smith is going to pan out to be the superstar that we expect him to be. We don't know what type of quarterback Jalen Hurts is going to be. We don't know what Nick Sirianni is going to be as the head coach. Like I've been saying, and we've been saying all offseason, heading into 2021, there is too many question marks, too many unanswered questions, too many things that could go wrong to really before you get all hyped up and expect them to be a deep playoff team. Granted, a lot of stuff can happen. Jalen Hurts could ball out. Devontae Smith could be a rookie of the year candidate. Yes, but right now, as of June 23rd, whatever the hell the date is right now, I'm going to have to say it's too soon to say they're going in the right direction because we do not know if these moves are going to pan out in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, so you're saying false. Johnny says true. Is there like a word in between true and false? Because I think what Jeff just described isn't necessarily a false, like saying that statement's false. Is incomplete the way to answer the true false statement, which means that's kind of like the cop-out answer. So I'm going to go true, just to say at least I see potential in the moves. Yes, we've all disagreed on some of the moves they've made this offseason, draft picks, free agents, whether they're good upgrades or not, whether their potential is there or not. But like you said, too many question marks. Just with your second round pick, Dickerson, the health of him, every single move they made, there is a question mark attached to it. But on the flip side of the equation, I think the ceiling of all the moves they've been making is a lot higher than previous years. So I'm going to go true just to be ultra positive because there's been way too much negativity in Philadelphia sports the last, 5-6 days since the Sixers completely collapsed. So I'm going to try to bring positivity tonight. I know some of the topics are negative and all, but we kind of need positivity. So I'm going to go old school homerish fan and just say, true, they're moving in the right direction. Howie didn't have on paper his worst offseason. On paper doesn't always work. We know that. But, I'm a little bit optimistic on this offseason. I'm not saying we're winning no Super Bowl or anything like that, but they're moving in the right direction for 2 to 3 years out from now if everything plays according to plan.
And that's the thing. If it plays according to plan, this whole rebuild, retool, whatever the hell you want to call it, could bomb out in the next 2 to 3 seasons. Nick Sirianni could be fired by then. We might be going through the whole entire new process. We don't know because there's so much unknown with this football team.
We don't even know if the Eagles are truly 120% committed to their quarterback.
Exactly.
But the thing is, for Jeff, what is the right direction? If you're saying this is false, then what's the right direction that they should be going?
What should they have done that would have told you that they were going in the right direction? Fire Howie?
That probably could have been the start. Or go after one of the veteran quarterbacks that were possibly available on the open market with your potential 3 first-round selections next year, which is still a possibility. Not this year, but next season. But the question to the term, are they in the right direction? We just don't know. We don't know what direction this team is going to take. On paper, it looks good. Look, they finally got a playmaker that we hope that is going to stand out. They're getting an offensive line. Hopefully that's going to be healthy. A defensive-minded coach, Jonathan Gannon, that's going to be, I feel, a major upgrade over what Jim Schwartz brought to the table with his stale defensive scheme. So, in reality, yes, on paper, they're getting the right pieces on the field, the right pieces on the coaching staff, along with the accomplice complement Sirianni. So on paper, it looks good, but we just don't know until game 1 hits, or at least preseason, to get a little bit of a glimpse on how this offense and how this team is going to be ran. And from the key X factors on this team, we really can't say one way or the other. I agree with you. It's more like an incomplete, which it is a cop-out, but we just don't know because, like I said, they could be a Super Bowl contending team in a year if everything pans out, or they can be a complete rebuild in 2 years. We don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's, we all know Peanut loves his Howie, so he's always going to say great things about Howie.
I like that Peanut has a profile picture, though.
He does. It's not just a blank space anymore. So you bring up first preseason game, August 12th. That's 49 days away. Opening of camp, 35 days away.
Crazy.
It's creeping up. It's going to be here before we know it. We only have 5 to 7 weeks of no football to get over this Eagles debacle, and the Phillies only have our eyes on them for 5 more weeks till everybody in the city is focused on the Eagles. So we're talking pretty generally here of the offseason. So let's get to it. And the first question, like, to get more detailed about this, was I saw a quote from Isaac Bruce recently in the last day or so, how he sees greatness in Devontae Smith. So now we're about 6-7 weeks past the draft. Now that it's marinated, you've really had time. I know, Johnny, you really know your college kids really well, but did our opinions on the success or failure of this draft change in the last 6-7 weeks while we had time to think about it? I mean, when someone, a Hall of Famer like Isaac Bruce, gives a compliment like he did to Devontae Smith, I mean, you can't just brush that off. You have to take that. He knows wide receivers. He's one of the greatest of all time. You have to accept at least some part of that and all. Jeff, has your opinion on Devontae Smith or the entire draft class changed at all in the last 6-7 weeks? Or is it still a big question mark to you?
Draft on paper, it looks solid, and my opinion has not changed on Devontae Smith. Coming out of college, as Johnny's brought up before, and he's brought up a lot of great points about Devontae over the course of the offseason, is the dude is a stud. He is going to be a difference maker for the Philadelphia Eagles offense. The fact that he comes in here as a rookie day one is automatically an upgrade over everything that we have. And the level of competition he played at the college level, I feel, is going to be huge for his development, because he went up against one of the best cornerbacks in the draft with Patrick Surtain consistently in practice. So the fact that those two were able to push each other, it's going to be a similar situation with him going up against Darius Slay, one of the veteran cornerbacks, top cornerbacks in this league. So it's going to be interesting from the veteran standpoint, the defense side of the football, the guide him and show him what some of the corners do in this league to take that next level to the NFL. And I understand everyone's worried about his size, which I agree it could be a problem, but let's not worry about that. Let's worry about, like you said, the positivity, the positives of Devontae Smith, and the fact that this dude completely balls out everywhere he goes in every game. So I'm excited. And as far as the rest of the draft class, it's a wait-and-see approach, but ultimately hearing what everyone's saying about this draft and saying about our selections, it was a solid draft. And listening to Johnny's draft show, him and Tommy both agreed that the Eagles did pretty well in April's draft, filling needs, getting some talent at great value, and getting some steals there. So I'm excited about this draft class, and hopefully it makes a turn for the better for the Eagles. But again, it's a wait-and-see approach, and it depends on the playing time and the development of this coaching staff.
I mean, Johnny, in the Isaac Bruce quote, he obviously brought up the name, and a name that you have brought up as well, Marvin Harrison, comparing Devontae Smith to. I mean, I think it's a fair comparison. It also puts a lot of pressure, obviously, on Devontae Smith to live up to another Hall of Fame, type wide receiver. Is that his ceiling, Marvin Harrison? Can he be better than Marvin Harrison? Or and kind of what's his floor? I mean, if he's not that good, how much further down below that is he really? Taking injuries and his size out of the equation, where is that?
So I like Isaac Bruce because if you really look at Isaac Bruce, his body build is similar to Devontae Smith. If you take a look at him coming out of college, out of Memphis, when he came out and was drafted by the Rams in the second round, for him it's great praise to have Isaac Bruce praise you, and then compare you to Marvin Harrison, who, as we know, is absolute stud receiver for all those years with the Colts and Peyton Manning. To me, like Devontae Smith I love the pick because he can do so many things for you on the offensive side of the ball. That work ethic, and Jalen Hurts has talked about it as well, how he, when he showed around, like, he didn't want to go to parties. He wants to learn. He wants to work on his craft. He wants to get better. He wants to go up against the best. He even stated about Darius Slay, he wants to go up against him. He wants to learn and get better every single day. And, his floor, I don't want to, say this. I did compare him earlier in the draft season. I remember, I did compare him to the body type only, the body type of Todd Pinkston. So I'm only going body type. I don't know what his floor is. If he struggles.
Honestly, Todd Pinkston, I know
No.
I had a little back and forth there with you and Pinkston on Twitter once. It wasn't a bash on Pinkston. Pinkston was not a bad football player.
He got open.
He got injured. His size is the bad part of his size was the injury issues of taking the big hits in the NFL.
But
And he didn't want to take those big hits. Too many alligator arms.
Absolutely. So where I'm at, and the draft is kind of why I'm in the truth to the original statement of, is this team taking the right steps in the right direction? It's because my instant reaction, I hated the draft. I crapped all over it. Every pick that was made, I was like, that's not who I would have taken and all. But if you look at the draft objectively, after you let it, settle down and the instant reaction calms down, you look at what they're doing. I've always said, and we've discussed it on the show, you build a franchise through the trenches. And that's what they did. They got a center, multiple defensive tackles, a defensive end. They didn't get as many outside of Devontae Smith. They didn't go for too many flashy players in the draft. And getting a center / guard that could play if he's healthy for the next 10, 12 years. Milton Williams, another excellent guy that, ultimately, maybe could take over for Fletcher Cox if you move on from him, or could be that next big, defensive tackle. They did a lot of great building blocks in the draft. And my initial reaction was, I hated the draft because they didn't get cornerback soon enough. They didn't get linebackers soon enough. I wanted linebacker instead of wide receiver in the first round. But when you take a step back, you kind of remove yourself from that emotion. You look at the draft, and it was a pretty solid draft in that aspect, right?
Yeah, and you take it to what the question you asked, true or false, they're taking the right steps. And the way you look at it is, you trade back to then trade up to you're getting more for the later years. But you get Devontae Smith, who was, the number one, number two. Him and Chase were back and forth depending on top receiver. Then you look and you get Landon Dickerson. Jason Kelsey and Brandon Brooks, how much longer are they going to be there? You have a guy that can play guard, that can play center. You're replacing. You have a guy sitting there. You've got a guy like Milton Williams, like you said, Fletcher Cox. How much longer is he going to be with the Philadelphia Eagles? And then you look even deeper into it. Zach McPherson, yeah, he's not the quintessential top corner, but he is another depth piece, another corner piece. You get guys, defensive ends, because Derek Barnett, is he going to be here next year? How long is Brandon Graham with Teron Jackson and Patrick John? So they were doing something that we've asked of getting depth and getting players, because we know these guys, I'll say it, the Zach Ertz, the Jason Kelsey, the Brandon Brooks, the Brandon Grahams, Lane Johnson. How much longer are these guys going to be there? You need those guys behind there that are going to hopefully be those next guys that are going to be here for a handful of years and be those leading
because
veterans.
as much as there are youthful, young, inexperienced players on this team, there's just as much age and old and worn out players on this team that are spent at this point. Again, the question of the day, true, false. Well, not question. The topic, true, false. The Eagles are moving in the right direction. We've got 2 trues and 1 false on this panel. Make sure you drop in the comment sections your thoughts and all. Richard's saying the Eagles have a major development problem, so he's concerned about it. But my counter to that, Richard, is outside of Stoutland, I'm pretty sure 99% of the coaching staff and developmental, people in this front office are pretty much different. They've pretty much cleaned house on coaching. So we don't know if they're bad developers or not. You kind of have to look at the squads they came from, the Colts and the Chargers and those teams, and were they developing players there? And I'm not as worried as I have in previous years, with that, especially the wide receivers. We've all talked about how poorly they developed wide receivers over the years. Well, this is a totally different squad. And from everything you can hear and read and talk about, they might have a little bit better of idea how to, develop these players.
A coach who played the position and who has coached the position and who he has developed, good receivers for the Indianapolis Colts, helped develop good receivers for the Colts. So there is a positive there.
And again, you can't just trade away every bad contract. Yeah. A, you have to have a willing partner. And then secondly, the dead cap that gets associated with some of those bad contracts when you trade them away. It's not as easy as it sounds. Just trade away. It's not the NBA or baseball where you just trade these people away. There's a lot more to it with the NFL salary cap.
Yeah, because it's a hard cap. It's not a soft cap.
There's a lot that goes into that. Real quick, I do want to touch on one more time. I love with the draft. I do want to one more time shout out the Kenneth Gainwell selection in the 5th round. I have to say that, in my opinion, that could be what you thought Adrian Killins was going to be, a sleeper that's going to take over, not this year, but eventually that Darren Sproles third down type running back role.
Kenny Gainwell is, if he did not opt out, Eagles would have never selected him because he probably would have went either late 2nd round or early 3rd round. So a little Kenny G, maybe that should be a shirt.
Yeah, Kenny G. Get a little can we get a saxophone in front of Kenny Gainwell's face somehow?
We can do anything.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. And again, just like the development, the injuries, that's from the previous regime. We've got a whole new coaching staff, whole new medical. There's so many changes that have happened inside the NovaCare complex. I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to have a positive outlook on it. And by doing that, I'm kind of thinking that these changes, again, it's not going to result in immediate, Super Bowl contention, but it should put us in a good place moving forward.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The injuries, we've brought it up, and I've mentioned it, that how hard was Doug Peterson practicing? How hard was he having these players practice? If they're going half-ass, and then the game they have to go full speed and everything, you could have a lot of injuries. I don't know. I don't know how they practice. I don't know how he went through the motions with the players. There's stories everywhere with anything. Well, I don't know that.
Well, also some of that, the level competition and practice is also part of the CBA agreement. They only can have so many days in padded practice, so many hours, all that type of stuff. So it wasn't fully all on Doug. We can criticize Doug for a lot of things, but some of it was not all on him. It's the agreement between the NFL and the Players Association, because too many players are complaining that they're getting hurt too much. Their bodies are getting worn down too quickly. And ultimately, that's the one negativities of having that, because their bodies get soft and you're more prone to injuries when it comes to game time, like you said, when you're having this full game action.
Yeah. So outside the draft, we've also had a lot of roster turnover. I didn't bring up, on paper, 8-9 wins. It's possible. Again, I don't get into my record predictions till the season's about to start. Team, it's so hard at this point to predict, Drew. Whether it's another 4-win team, whether it's an 8-win team or a 12-win team, until we actually see something, even if it's a vanilla offense in the first preseason game, you really can't judge till that point what this team is going to be, because there are still moves that are going to happen potentially as well.
And you can hear all our predictions on our extravaganza show that we're going to have for the season. So we're not going to give it away.
An extravaganza show? Is that what we're calling it? The Eagles, all about the birds extravaganza.
Eagles extravaganza
and fireworks going off.
We can do it. All
right, sounds good. All right, so some of the other moves. So I'm stealing this terminology and this phrase. It was from Mike Kay, friend of the show. He did an article of all the draft pick or all the positional changes and player changes, and he did whether it was an upgrade, downgrade, or equal. So I just pulled up some of the names and some of the changes we made. And I want to get your guys' opinions. Now, again,
if you want, you could just go, all of us, give me one, give Jeff one, give me one.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, basically. Yeah. But, we could both chime in on whether we agree or disagree with you on your opinions. But, I just pulled some of the names here. So, obviously, everybody's favorite linebacker, Nathan Geary, is gone. And Eric Wilson has been replaced, or has replaced him. Johnny, I know you love Eric Wilson, so I'll let you go. Is it an upgrade or a downgrade? I think this is the most obvious answer here.
Oh, it's an upgrade. Eric Wilson is your day one starter.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Alex Singleton. It's Eric Wilson. Eric Wilson is the penciled in starter. Whoever starts next to him, that's going to be competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's an upgrade.
Yeah, I think that was the easiest of the questions, the most slam dunk layup of these questions.
The DeAndre Ayton slam dunk.
What? Yeah, DeAndre Ayton. Yeah, it was a good one last night. Jeff, do you agree with him that Eric Wilson's a pure upgrade over Nathan Geary?
Yeah, no doubt. Look, Nathan Gary last season, we saw more of the back of his jersey than plays made on the football field. So that's how bad Nathan Gary was playing last season. And Eric Wilson, he comes in here as one of the better coverage linebackers of the National Football League, which is something that the Eagles have been dreading not having the last couple years on this defense. And he's a tackling machine. So it's going to be definitely interesting to see. Hopefully, in that prove it type of, because remember, they only have him on a 1-year deal. So it's basically a stopgap year. If they feel he's played well enough to bring back, hopefully that's the case. Otherwise, we're still going to be looking for a linebacker in 2022. But at least for this coming season, it's definitely going to be exciting to see him in Jonathan Gannon's defense.
And Jonathan Gannon has had success developing linebackers. Johnny has brought that up many of times on this show. All right, Jeff, you get to go first on the next one. Johnny's favorite safety cornerback, Jalen Mills, went bye-bye. Go to New England, go to Bill Belichick land, and we've got the Ant-Man, Anthony Harris, as his replacement on safety. I think this one's obvious, but not quite as, it's 100% Wilson's over Geary. There are some Mills supporters out there that'll keep it a little bit closer. Upgrade, downgrade, or the same?
I'm going to say it's an upgrade. Look, Jalen Mills, he has failed at 2 positions in the secondary. He couldn't cut it as a cornerback. He couldn't cut it as a safety. So nothing against Jalen Mills, and I understand. And the reason there's a lot of support for Jalen Mills is because he was on that Super Bowl team. And that 1 year, he did make a contribution, and he did show he had some level of talent of belonging in the NFL. But there was the fact that he couldn't get on the field the last couple seasons in either one of those positions, and the fact that they were kept on moving him around, that's a bad sign for any player that has to continually gain their position change and can't find a way to get on the field, or when they are on the field, they're very lackluster, which Anthony Harris, he's one of the better safeties in the league. I'm not saying he's a top flight safety, but he definitely has the potential to be a ball hawk and a guy that can make a lot of difference in that secondary and causing some havoc and causing some turnovers, which is something the Eagles defense did not do a lot of. They did not cause a lot of turnover, as they were one of the worst in the turnover differential category. So hopefully his leadership and his veteran ability on this secondary is definitely going to be a contribution to our defense.
Johnny, I know you want to comment on one word that Jeff used. He said Jalen Mills failed at 2 positions. You've got to disagree with that, don't you?
No, I disagree with that. He didn't fail at safety. His numbers were so much better. But to me, it is an upgrade, because the Jalen Mills excels when he's closer to the line of scrimmage, almost as a safety hybrid linebacker type. And Anthony Harris isn't that. Anthony Harris, remember, Minnesota franchised him 2 years ago. So if you're franchising a safety who 2 years ago, he was probably one of the top 5 safeties in the league. He was that good. Yep. Yes, they struggled last year, but also you have to take a look. In fact, the Minnesota defense struggled all last year. They had cornerbacks coming in and out. They had a defensive line that was patched up, and they had no pass rush. So, yeah, there's going to be some struggles, but you're getting a guy, and what they got him for, 1 year, I think $5 million. To me, it's an upgrade because he fits, because we don't know if Rodney McLeod's going to start the season on the PUP list or if he's going to play week 1. I know he says he wants to play week 1, but we don't know that. And to have a veteran like Anthony Harris to be able to be back there for a defense, which he's familiar with, to me, it is an upgrade. And I know the Gary and Wilson upgrade is 100%. To me, this one is probably 90-10. I love Jalen Mills. Don't get me wrong. I'll support him. I thought he played really well last year. But Anthony Harris is an upgrade. Yeah. You can't deny that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think Anthony Harris was that huge of a deal. But when you get to think about it, that he's replacing Jalen Mills, it's the same thing with Eric Wilson. I was like, oh, that wasn't a wow move for me. But again, when he's replacing Nathan Geary, these moves are wow moves because they're just, even if they're good players, they're so much better than what we had last year. And it can't be any worse than we had last year in that defense. All right, so the next one, again, on the defense. And, I know it seems on paper an obvious answer. Vinny Curry, gone. Ryan Kerrigan, here. And outside of the fact that we don't have to block him and stop him from Washington anymore, because he seemed to always have career games against the Eagles. Be interesting to see if he has career games against Washington. Is that an upgrade, a downgrade, or the same? Johnny, you can go first if you want.
They're a little bit different of players. Curry could play inside. He was more of a run stuffer, and Kerrigan's a pass rusher. But for me, you look at Kerrigan and what he did in the limited amount of snaps that he had. He had over 5 sacks and a limited amount percentage of snaps. And for me, I think it's gonna bode well because of the defensive line and the players that you have on the defensive line with Hargrave and Cox, and you have Brandon Graham and Sweat and Barnett and now Kerrigan and Jannard Avery. You have pass rushers all over the place, whether they play inside or outside. So for me, what it gives you is, it gives you a veteran pass rusher that could spell some of these other guys and give that rotation, which, I love Ryan Kerrigan as a player. Yeah, he's 31 years old, 31 or 32 years old, but to me, he still balls out.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, look, nothing against Vinny Curry. He is my boy. He's a fellow wrestling fan. And once again, he was on that Super Bowl team. And thank you for helping us bring us a championship. But nothing against him. He doesn't strike fear to opposing offensive lines. He's a very serviceable depth piece, but he's not a guy that can rely on three down defensive end as it been shown when he was given the opportunity. As you saw, the more snaps he got, the less production that he was able to do. And I agree with Johnny. He's more of the versatile defensive end, the guy that can get after the quarterback, but also make plays in the run. He was a little bit of a cheaper version of Trent Cole, in my opinion. But Ryan Kerrigan, he has been a force to be reckoned with over the last couple seasons. For most of his career, as we know from him being on the Washington football team. And the fact that we don't have to face him twice a year is a godsend. So I'm not saying he's going to be the all-pro, Pro Bowl level type of pass rusher that we saw in the past just because of his age and the wear down of his body, but he definitely has the success in the National Football League. He knows what it takes, and he's a guy that's going to provide a lot of depth to a decent pass rush already, and a little bit of a questionable pass rush. I would say who's going to we don't know what Derek Barnett's going to bring to the table after he had a disappointing season last year. Josh Sweat had a decent year, but can he be the guy to come in? And we know he's not a 3-down defensive end just because the wear and tear on his knees. So we definitely need that depth piece, a guy that knows how to get after the quarterback, especially in those big 3rd and long situations.
I mean, I just want to say one thing, though. I mean, we're saying how much better Vinny Curry is. Vinny Curry in limited snaps. I mean, he only played 28% of the snaps last year. Still had 3 sacks, a couple tackles, played special teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ryan Kerrigan played 38% of the snaps last year and had 5 sacks last year.
5.5.
So,
don't chip on that.
Okay, sorry. I was paging through really fast, trying to get both things up on my screen at the same time. I mean, really, so 12% more snaps, 2 more sacks. To me, it's almost – Ryan Kerrigan is a big game player at points in his career. If someone gets injured, he can step in. But if everybody stays healthy and plays to their potential, I think Ryan Kerrigan is a lot closer to equal. He's an upgrade, but I think it's very, very close to equal to Vinny Curry because at least Vinny Curry can play inside on blitzing 3rd downs if necessary. Ryan Kerrigan's an outside guy, and that's it. He's not really a run stopper to an extent.
And he also was playing the 3-4, and he was getting limited amount of snaps because they have the pass rushing specialist with Chase Young and company. So everyone's saying, well, he couldn't get on the field last year because he sucked. That wasn't the case. They just were a very tremendous, talented defense when it came to their pass rushing specialist, especially for a guy that they invested a 1st-round selection with like Chase Young.
And then if you want to go 2 years ago when Chase Young wasn't there, he played 57% of the snaps, still only had 5.5 sacks.
Yeah.
So, again, Ryan Kerrigan is an upgrade over Vinny Curry, but it's not as widespread as the Eric Wilson, Anthony Harris moves, in my opinion. So, real quick, we're gonna switch subjects here for 1 second. We got a question from Ryan. What 2nd-year player are we most looking forward to seeing this year? He says Jalen Reagor. Johnny, on the spot, answer this question. Who are you most looking forward to 2nd-year-wise this year?
I'm going to go Adrian Killins. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I had to throw that in. He is a second-year guy.
Roster.
Did they already
No.
cut him?
No, not yet.
I mean, I think they already cut him.
They have 8
And
running
re-signed him and cut him and re-signed him again.
I think it's Rager is the easy option to pick. One player I'm looking to see how they use him. It's going to be Jalen Hurts because he is a second-year guy. He is your quarterback. I want to see how he fits in the offense that they're going to be running. To me, I feel like that's the bigger guy, and maybe it's another easy answer, but I want to see how Jalen Hurts fits into a Nick Sirianni offense.
Jeffrey, I mean, don't take the cop-out answer like Johnny saying Jalen Hurts, our second-year quarterback. That's the guy. I mean, that's just
he's still a second-year guy, though.
Answer right there. It's the obvious answer. Peanut checking in with Quez Watkins, another question mark wide receiver that showed flashes of some really good skills last year.
Yeah, look, you could say Quez Watkins, you say John Hightower, but these guys were late round selections for a reason. The guy I'm looking at the most is going to be Davion Taylor. The fact that you invested a 3rd round selection in him a year ago, which I felt was quite a reach for Davion Taylor at that selection, but they were apparently high on him, and they feel that he did not adjust and learn the defensive scheme well enough last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's able to adjust and learn the scheme this year with a new defensive coordinator, with a new defensive scheme. And if he's going to be able to even get on the football field. Right now, on the depth chart on ESPN, they have him behind Alex Singleton, so maybe they'll fight for some playing time there. Or is he going to try to get that strong side linebacker position from Sean Bradley or battling out on the other side? So it's going to be interesting to see for a guy that you invested a 3rd round selection in on how well he goes into year 2, hopefully making some type of contribution, because we keep on talking. It's going to
be interesting with him because we do have a defensive coaching staff now that has valued and coached up and developed linebackers in the past. So it'll be interesting. So I was going to say Davion Taylor, or I was going to say Kayvon Wallace. You said Davion Taylor. I'll say Kayvon Wallace. I won't take the layups of Jalen Hurts, Jalen Reagor. I'll go somewhere else. The only thing I'm going to say about Kayvon Wallace, when we drafted him, every single pundit, every single person, maybe even Johnny himself back in the day when we first started this podcast, said one thing: Brian Dawkins light. That guy did not get on the field and show us one little iota.
I didn't compare him to Dawkins. I wouldn't do that.
There's a lot of people that said he was the next coming of Brian Dawkins. And you know what? He did not show one iota of Brian Dawkins' skill set or leadership or fire or energy or anything. Again, Jeff said with Davion Taylor with the 3rd round pick, Kayvon Wallace a 4th round selection. It's going to be you said it before. Rodney McLeod might not be ready to go to start the year. You've got Anthony Harris. There's going to be, at least in training camp, a lot of opportunities for Kayvon Wallace to show himself. And we'll learn a lot about him in the first 4 to 6 to 7 weeks of the preseason and camp. I'd love to see him step up, because if you can have another name safety that has any kind of ball hawk skills, it's something that go a long way to the development of this team and keeping them moving, as the question is today, in the right direction.
Don't also forget about Marcus Epps. He did start with the Vikings too.
Isn't he like an actor or something like that, Epps?
Not Omar.
That's Omar Epps. Same thing. Different day. All right. So real quick, before we get into some of the other topics, a couple other picks. Real quick, Johnny, upgrade or downgrade? Corey Clement, Kerryon Johnson.
Upgrade. Clement's not what he used to be.
Who isn't? What, Clement?
Yeah, he's not what he used to be.
Johnson's just as injury prone as Clement, in my opinion. Couldn't see the field much either. I think it's the same.
Jeff? I think it's a slight upgrade.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a slight upgrade, just because, look, Corey Clement, everyone, once again, Super Bowl hero, Super Bowl touchdown. They don't remember all the other games where he did not produce or didn't stay healthy for. So, Kerryon Johnson, slight upgrade. I feel he's going to fit our system a little bit more and get a little bit more playing time.
All right, Jeff, Nate Sudfeld, Sudsy, and Mullen, upgrade, downgrade. Nick Mullen stays the same.
I'm going to stay the same. Look, Sudfeld, according to Hallie, is the best deep ball thrower in the National Football League, but we never really ever got to see it. So I really don't know what Sudfeld really could bring to the table besides some of the garbage time games that he was able to get in. Mullins got a little bit starting experience with the 49ers. He didn't really show much, but again, they're a complete football team minus the quarterback position when Garoppolo was injured. So I feel that veteran that starting experience is going to be put a little bit of a nudge over Sudfeld, but honestly, I don't know what Sudfeld could have been. So I'm going to say it's about the same.
Even Ron Jaworski, our first guest ever on this show, loved and gushed about Nate Sudfeld. And I lost a lot of respect for Jaws there. Just kidding. Love Jaws. Johnny, upgrade or downgrade? Suds and Mullen.
It's a slight upgrade. He started 16 games. I know Sudfeld didn't get the opportunity, but Mullins is much better than Sudfeld. He started 16 games. Sudfeld showed you got in and really didn't do much. I understand he didn't get the opportunity, but as a third-string quarterback and he has 16 starts, that's pretty good. He may not even make the roster really. So it's a slight upgrade, but
wait, see, here's the thing with Nick Mullins. I think he can not make the roster. On the other end of the equation, Joe Flacco's getting pretty old. Joe Flacco might not make the roster, and Nick Mullins might be your second-string quarterback. So there's too many unknowns there. Only thing is now, who's going to throw pick sixes to Alex Singleton with Nick Mullins not on the other team?
Nick Mullins can do it in practice.
Okay, in practice. Well, a lot of coaches don't like their quarterbacks being picked off in practice. I don't know about Sirianni, how he's going to feel about that. But anyway, all right, so Sudfeld, Nick Mullins. All right, real fast, because I said that on the last two guys, and you guys went way too long on those guys. Johnson, Sipos, upgrade, downgrade. Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Incomplete.
Yeah, you went from a Pro Bowl punter to a guy that's never punted down. Jeff,
why the hell are we even talking punters?
I just put his name on the list because I thought it was funny the fact that the punter is one of the top 10 moves in free agency this team's made.
That is true.
It is. I mean, they lost. Bad teams need good punters, and they got rid of a good one in Cam Johnson. All right. Yep. So obviously, we'll get to the Zach Ertz part in a second. But what other moves outside of Zach Ertz are there left to make for this team? Obviously, cornerback is still a glaring hole. Somebody commented a few minutes ago about can't go into another season with Avonte Maddox as your number 2 cornerback. What other moves do we want to see outside of the Steven Nelson potentially coming in here, which the longer it takes, the less likely it becomes? What would you guys like to see as moves? Is there any surprise moves that Howie might have up his sleeve?
I'll let Jeff go. Go ahead.
I don't know what else they can really do right now unless there's going to be – you're not going to see anything until it's closer to training camp if anything does happen from a guy that possibly could get cut and a team wants to get some type of value for him. I kind of feel they're a little bit stuck with the cap situation right now. It's not like they can go out there and make a deep move until they decide to move on from Ertz. If they do move on from him, the cornerback position is really the only position that we expect them to try to address. Of course, everyone wants to bring up linebacker, but they sort of already did that. They signed Eric Wilson. Granted, we still need other linebackers. I'm not very confident in the group that we have. But they're going to go with the guys that they have there right now, in my opinion. So I don't see much of a change with this roster. I kind of feel this is going to be the roster you're going to have going to training camp in the 40-something days until camp starts?
Camp's 35. 5 weeks 35? Till camp. Yeah. So 49 till first preseason game, 35 days till camp. Johnny, any moves you see happening before camp or during camp outside Zach Ertz?
I'm not going to say anything with the free agents. We've kind of beat a dead horse with talking free agents. So possibly you can get a cornerback, possibly dealing for one, and not saying a high-end corner. People like to throw out Xavier Howard and Stephon Gilmore. They're not doing that. But guys, there's 5 guys I took a look at that are on teams that have loaded cornerback rosters. Houston, Lonnie Johnson Jr., Denver, Nate Hairston, Denver, Michael Ojemudia, Kansas City, Rashad Fenton, and San Fran, Dante Johnson. So, they're not household names, but a lot of these guys have experience in the NFL. It's not like they don't have any experience. So, you may be able to get rid of a mid to late round selection to get a player, almost kind of what they did with Ronald Darby. Now, Ronald Darby was a little bit bigger of a name than some of these guys, but That's what I could possibly see happening, is doing that if they don't go ahead and sign a Steven Nelson and they're not trading for a big guy, but to get a guy, with some experience to go opposite or fight for that spot opposite of Darius Slay.
Yeah, they'll obviously have to address that part. But again, I agree with you guys on that. I think it's more likely to be somebody leaving the nest. I said I put in the agenda any surprise players maybe leaving the nest. I think it's almost as likely as that they get rid of a veteran or a big name, around the beginning of camp or in the middle of camp, than bringing somebody on. But back to bringing people in, I would like to see them bring in a veteran wide receiver. I mean, you look at our wide receiver room right now. Last year, I know they were injured, and I'm not talking about a big name Julio Jones type, move. You look at last year, we had Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, and before COVID and all that, we had Marcus Goodwin as well. Right now, 20 for 47, Greg Ward and Arcega-Whiteside are your two longest tenured wide receivers in that room. I mean, you might need a veteran voice in that wide receiver room, or there could be some real slow development with these guys.
The only problem with that is if they bring a veteran wide receiver in, that's going to take away snaps from the other guy. That's the one thing Philadelphia complained about last year when Alshon Jeffrey returned from injury and they forced him back in the lineup, taking away from the hot guy like Fulgham and Quez Watkins and Hightower. So I don't see them bring that. And
you have a roster spot. You can easily get rid of Arcega-Whiteside.
But how many? But if they do that, it means they admit that they were wrong about Arcega-Whiteside. The Eagles are not an organization that really not often admit that they're wrong. They are not going to give up on a guy that they drafted very highly. More than likely, they'll let him finish out his rookie contract and move on from him then. But he's in the final year of his rookie deal this year. Yeah. So he's or he might have 2 more years. I can't remember what, but he's definitely
second-round pick. What are they? 4 3-year deals?
They're 4 years.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, he has 2 more years. So unless he completely bottoms out, they want to know what they have with their wide receiving core. But my question to you before, or Johnny wants to answer, but after he answers, who do you think is going to leave the nest? You brought up that you feel that it's more likely that someone's going to go. What type of those names do you think are going to be the ones on their way out?
Johnny, do you want to go on the wide receiver part, or should I answer his comment?
I'll touch on the wide receiver. I understand where Phil's coming from with this, because if you look, and he's not saying bring a guy who's played in the league 12, 13 years. Well, there are players out there that I could see them possibly, taking a look at.
Even another Marquise Goodwin type guy.
Yeah, and one guy I thought about until he restructured his deal and stuff was Jamison Crowder with the Jets. There was talk there, but he restructured, he's back. But a guy like, Anthony Miller for the Bears, he's, struggled in that system. Change of scenery sometimes help. There's some players, maybe you look, a Kenny Stills type or, something along the as. It all depends. I understand where Jeff's coming from. Let these young guys play. Let them see who does well. I understand that. But if you can,
we drafted 5, 6 wide receivers in the last 3 drafts. They are very not built, but they're very. It's very crowded at the wide receiving position.
They're committed to their youth. I'm just trying to bring up another thought process on where a veteran, because everyone wants to talk about cornerback. We need one. I was trying to look at the roster and see where we may need more help. And wide receiver is something that, look, I know a lot of people like Greg Ward, and he's a nice guy and he's a nice player, but he's not the guy you want leading your wide receiver room. He's still a 4th or 5th wide receiver. Arcega-Whiteside, he's junk. Watkins and Hightower, they're young and experienced, but you really don't want them on the field all the time because they haven't proven it yet. And they had more down moments than up moments. So you're putting a lot of pressure on Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith to carry that wide receiver room. And they're pretty young. So, a voice would really help there, in my opinion. But back to the leaving the nest part of the question, Jeff, I don't know exactly who. Obviously, if I was Johnny, I would say, well, the guy that's leaving the nest is Zach Ertz. I would take the slam dunk answer there, which we can talk if you want about that, when it'll happen. But I honestly think that if this team is truly committed to moving forward in the right direction, but with that youth movement, you could see someone on the offensive line get traded. If Dickerson is healthy, you might see Sayamalu get moved. You might see Brandon Brooks get moved. They've both been talked about in the past. I know it's an unpopular topic and name to move, but Brandon Graham has trade value still. Depending on the cap situation, what you get for him, a contending team might want Brandon Graham.
What about this scenario? It's the same position as Brandon Graham, but a little bit different. What if in camp, so middle of camp, kind of what they did with, to get Ronald Darby, Jordan Matthews, who is trying to be a tight end now. But no,
we do a whole show on Jordan Matthews at tight end.
No, we can stop. But
I think I could talk about an hour about that.
You just talk about every time he's been with the Eagles. That'll take about 45 minutes on the show. But what about Derek Barnett for possibly a younger on a rookie deal cornerback who has started in the league? You could do that. You save money in that aspect. And I know you are taking away from your depth at a position, a position that you do value. But if Derek Barnett has another year, struggles again, you're not going to sign him to a contract extension. It just doesn't. You're not going to wait for him to break out. When is it going to happen? Let's sign him to a 3-4 year deal. Hopefully he breaks out during this deal. They're not going to do that. So that's another option that I think could possibly happen. But because you can't cut him, you can't save any money by cutting.
Yeah, I just think there could be, if you want to be committed to this youth movement, and you can still move in the right direction, be committed to the youth movement. Some of these names could get moved at the right moment in camp, whether it's injury replacement for a team or a team that's just missing one piece, or even if it's not before the season starts, by the trade deadline, you might see one of these two guys moved for one of these youth guys.
But as much as we want the youth movement, and they're looking to do that in the youth movement towards the future, they still are trying to sell to this fan base that they are trying to go out there and win. And I agree with you, the offensive line move might be the only one that I might consider them possibly doing. But look, if you get rid of Derek Barnett or if you get rid of Brandon Graham, what else do you really have behind one of them? And if the other one struggles, this team is built around depth along the offensive line and the defensive line of the football. And behind Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat proved to be that he can be a very serviceable guy when called upon with his 70 last year. Yeah, and went healthy. But behind them, what do they really have? If they're trying to win football game, that move, if they trade one of those guys on the defense side of the football, in my opinion, it tells your fan base that you are not dedicated to winning in 2021, which, unless the compensation's insane, if they could get a second-round pick or something along those lines for Derek Barnett or Brandon Graham, then freaking take it. Send them packing. I don't care then. But I just don't see any really big moves, them shipping someone out, unless it's a backup or like a backup with a pick or something along those lines, a guy that's probably going to get cut. That's typically what Howie does. He moves a guy that's probably not going to make the roster or is on the outside with the coaching staff. So it's going to be one of those things that's not going to happen until I feel in the middle of training camp or right before one of the cut days, if it does happen.
But is it valuable to trade you trade a player for a second-round pick and he turns into J.J. Arcega-Whiteside? See, there's always a downside.
There is, but
downsides. So real quick, before we move on to the final part of the show, the poll questions, I do want to ask, we've talked about it 6,000 times on this show. Zach Ertz is still a member of the Eagles. The longer it goes on, the more likely he's a member of the Eagles in 35 days when camp gets here. Is he going somewhere, and when? Jeff?
I don't think he's going anywhere. As much as the reports are coming out that he wants out of Philadelphia from Jeff Fowler, I feel if he was going to be shipped off somewhere, it would have happened by now. We kept on saying by this date, by the draft, by this, by then, and it still hasn't happened. The real question is he showing up to training camp?
I was just going to follow up your answer with that question. Will he show up to camp on July 27th?
I don't think so.
I don't think he's going to show up right on time. But I think he's going to try to send a statement, and then eventually he's going to show up, because the one thing he's complaining about is making money. He's not making enough money. It would make no sense for him to not come to training camp, get fined all that money, and then lose out the whole reason why you're holding out and trying to get a new deal. So I think a couple days, and then he'll come in.
So he's going to be here. Johnny, do you agree that he's going to be here? Or?
No, I think eventually it'll come at they're going to just say, you know what, this is done. We can't get the value. They're going to let him go because the $8.5 million. They re-signed Richard Rodgers. They have Goddard. They're going to probably sign Goddard to a contract extension. I think Ertz's time is ticking, and it's starting to get to that.
If you're right and they just cut him, I will have to eat my crow with George because George has been saying since the day the season ended that he is getting cut, not traded. So there's that one. All right, let's wrap this show up. But as we always do, poll questions and stuff like that. I had a poll question. It's going to kind of bring it full circle. We're going to bring up the name we never talk about, and we're going to link it to the Sixers, which the Sixers season just ended. This is not a 60-person result poll question, Jeff. I have real results. Okay,
damn time.
Over 300 votes on this poll. I brought up who is or was the bigger disappointment to the Philadelphia sports fans as of today, Jeff. Ben Simmons, and how it ended. Ben Simmons or Carson Wentz?
I'm going to have to say Ben Simmons. Look, this was the year that they should at least made the Eastern Conference Finals after last year's devastating buzzer beater against the Toronto Raptors. The fact that they lost in that fashion, to come back this year and have 3 double-digit leads in those games to blow them in the end. And it all relies around Ben Simmons. And even after the game, after the press conference, he really didn't. I know he says, well, I didn't play well. He didn't take any real responsibility. He didn't come out and say, I'm going to work out in the gym. That's the first thing I'm going to do. He just mellowed out and basically was just beating himself up, which I don't know if he fights through depression or whatever or any of that, but he just did not look himself. At least Carson Wentz, he did not witness the Super Bowl, but he was a major contributor in that Super Bowl season. So the fact that
I want to say it, Johnny. I want to say it. But he was there. And the drop-off from Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz helped lead us to a Super Bowl. And then literally fell off the face of the planet. He literally was going to get benched from this team. I mean, that's a bigger drop-off and disappointment. A Super Bowl MVP caliber quarterback literally going from the Super Bowl to the bench for a rookie. I don't think it becomes bigger disappointment than that. That would be like Ben Simmons losing his rotational spot to not Tyrese Maxey, but Shake Milton. That's the comparison in my mind.
But the fact that Ben Simmons is one of your 2 maxed out players on the roster, and
Carson Wentz was making like $140 million.
He was.
They just gave him a max deal literally the year before they cut him.
But before last year, before the whole benching and all that, granted, we were a horrible football team with or without Carson Wentz. So you can't put all the blame on Carson in that matter.
But you can't put all the blame on Ben Simmons either.
The thing I want to say.
The fact that he took no freaking shots in the fourth quarter, he took a total of 3 shots in 6 games in the fourth quarter. And
I think there's a lot of recency bias in Jeff and the poll because it's 73%. There 318 votes. 73% voted Ben Simmons is the bigger disappointment.
Thank you, Richard.
Carson Wentz. He's talking about my facts.
No, he's not.
I think the thing is what you said is right. Because it just happened. A lot of people are going to blame Ben. And like I said, I'm not a person that is going to go on the side of Ben and give all the explanations on what he does and the defense and all that kind of stuff. Because what you're seeing now on Twitter is what you saw the last couple of years with Carson. Carson's still good because he does this against this team and this and that. You're seeing it with Simmons now. The thing is, Carson Wentz was an MVP. An MVP. When was Ben Simmons an MVP? He wasn't. They have an MVP on the team in Joel Embiid. So the thing is, Carson Wentz was an MVP, and to have a drastic drop-off as he did and the way he played, and to say that Ben Simmons didn't take shots, well, Carson Wentz took a whole hell of a lot of sacks and took a lot of time trying to find certain people. And turnovers, and there's a lot on his plate too. And he is the franchise quarterback. He is the cornerstone of the franchise. Ben Simmons, yes, he's part of the max contract, but he isn't the end-all, be-all. That is Joel Embiid.
But
that is Joel Embiid's team.
Football is is the ultimate team sport compared to basketball. And
when you're a franchise quarterback, all eyes on you.
And I feel you guys are saying that everyone's thinking about the recent bias because of Ben Simmons recent. You guys are also thinking about the bias of Carson Wentz, the way how badly last season went. Because before last year,
over last year, it was months ago last year. I'm over last year.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. You're over
I'm
last
still picking
year.
Carson Wentz.
When you forget the couple years ago, Carson Wentz was, like Johnny said, an MVP candidate, probably MVP if he did not get hurt.
Hashtag Wentz is elite.
He still carried the team with inferior talent around him. It was not his fault last year. The fact that they had a horrible supporting cast from the wide receiving position, that the offensive line was down to their third and fourth backups along that offensive line, guys that shouldn't even be freaking playing, and a head coach that was fighting with management consistently butting in and was not able to coach a game properly. Ben Simmons let down the city of Philadelphia in this playoffs as the number one seed, a team that they should have beat.
DJ Spazzy Jeff, ready to roll here. Remember, I know what you're talking about with Wentz. I was the one that said hashtag Wentz is elite. I had him ranked as my number 4 NFL quarterback going into last season. Not you, me. I had him number 4 overall.
It depends what you're valuing. If you're valuing from expectations to the recent drop-off, yes. But I'm looking at the overall careers of both players, and I felt we got more in the end when it came to Carson Wentz than what we did with Ben Simmons if he does end up leaving Philadelphia.
The thing is, can you be a bigger disappointment? You have a guy who, you look at the stock market. Carson Wentz's stock is up, and then, it drops down. Ben Simmons has kind of stayed the same. It hasn't been all the skyrocketed up. He hasn't had MVP caliber seasons, kind of been stagnant. And I'm not a Ben guy. For me, I wouldn't have minded him being dealt 2 years ago. So I'm not one that's going to defend him. But for me, Carson Wentz, when you're an MVP caliber and you drop as you did, to me, that's a bigger disappointment.
All right, real quick, one final question before we wrap this up. It's kind of like a side. I put it out as a tweet once, like a week ago or something like that. Was this Sixers loss? Now, I know you guys were babies. You probably were in diapers or potty training, when these other events happened. But was the Sixers collapse against the Hawks as much of heartbreak or a bigger heartbreak than the Eagles losing to Tampa Bay in the championship game, the Eagles losing to Carolina in the championship game, or the Eagles losing to the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots back during the Donovan McNabb era? Where was if you had to put those 4 moments, those 3 Eagles moments losing, or this year's Sixers team, which one's the biggest heartbreak, and where does the Sixers heartbreak rank in that range?
Sixers are 4th. Sixers are 4th. Yeah, Sixers. That Sixers is definitely 4th. The Tampa Bay loss, the Super Bowl loss, and the Panthers loss. They were all, the Super Bowl loss. They may not have been expected. They were close enough to be expected with T.O. coming back. But the Tampa and the Panthers, they were expected to win those games. Especially the last game at the Vet, and then the Panthers. The Panthers come in. They beat them earlier in the year. It was expected to be wins. So. To me, I think the Sixers loss to the Raptors 2 years ago was a lot. That Game 7 loss was worse than.
I know other people have said that. I disagree because I don't think I had title aspirations with that team to the Raptors. I thought this team legitimately had a chance at winning the title. But again, nothing is as disappointing to me as Joe Jurevicius still run.
He's a Penn Stater though, so
I don't really care. He should have his picture ripped off the wall in Nittany line. But he should be stricken from the record books of Penn State.
Does that hurt you more, or is it looking at the Deshaun Foster? Nobody could tackle him, especially Mark Simoneau at the goal line back in 2003. Well, that one hurts too.
Just something about the game at the Vet, and I don't know that Joe Jurevicius that play will haunt me for the rest. I would probably put it as the Buccaneers game as the most disappointing of all 4. I would put the Panthers game as the second most disappointing because that team, there's no way Jake Delhomme should have been playing in a Super Bowl. Jake Delhomme's not a Super Bowl quarterback. Then I'd put the Sixers, and I would actually put the loss to the Patriots as the least of the 4 disappointments. What about Tom Brady in his prime? Tom Brady and that team was going to win no matter who played them.
What about the 2008 championship game? They had the lead, and at the end of the game.
And everybody blames Donovan for not coming back. Donovan led the comeback, and then Brian Dawkins could not tackle Larry Fitzgerald and blew that game there. That was Quentin Dent.
Quentin Demps couldn't tackle Larry Fitzgerald.
I'm pretty sure if I remember, Brian Dawkins had a chance too.
On one of those, probably. Yeah. There was 3 touchdowns, but I'm going to have to disagree a little bit, Phil. I agree that, look, Tampa Bay was absolutely the worst of all 4 of these.
They closed down the vet.
The way they started that game,
also,
they closed down the vet. Tampa Bay, a team that you beat previously in the playoffs in the last couple seasons, first off. 2, any team from the city or a sunny weather team coming to Philadelphia in the below freezing weather had never won a game in that type of situation. And the fact that if you would have beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you are steamrolling the Oakland Raiders and Rich Gannon, in my opinion. That team was way too solid. That they would have picked up their first.
You disagreeing with me on? That's what I just said.
Huh?
I just said that they were the most disappointing.
I know, no. I agree with you on that. I was saying the fact that the Super Bowl game is the worst of the 4. That's what I'm disagreeing with.
Oh, okay, guys. I thought you were disagreeing. I'm like, you disagreed with everything I said.
No. I was going down my list. I agree with you. I said on Tampa Bay, number 2 has to be that Super Bowl loss. The fact after 3 straight NFC Championship losses to get to the Super Bowl, to go against, and I agree with you, Tom Brady in his prime, but I don't feel that was the best Tom Brady team that he had in his years with the New England Patriots, and we had plenty of opportunities to win that football game. I
mean, but see, I put the other 2 games ahead of it because you lost to Brad Johnson. Wasn't Brad Johnson the quarterback of the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Who? You lost to Jake Delhomme, who? You could have beaten Rich Gannon, who? But I lost to Tom Brady. I can accept the loss to Tom Brady. He's the GOAT.
What makes it so disappointing is the fact that T.O. wasn't at full strength. And I brought up a couple weeks ago on our show, what is a bigger, somewhat to your poll, what's a bigger letdown in Philadelphia sports history that affected a Philadelphia team? Was it T.O.'s injury or Joel Embiid's injury? Because if Joel Embiid doesn't get hurt, we win that series, and we possibly do win the Eastern Conference Finals. But without Joel Embiid being fully healthy, I did not see them getting past that the next round, in my opinion, whether it was Milwaukee or the Nets. So I do have that as 4th, and I agree with you that losing to Jake Delhomme.
By the way, guys, the Hawks with 7 minutes left in the 4th quarter are leading game 1 against Milwaukee, 94-92. That Hawks team that we just hate is actually winning and beating the Bucks right now. That's just disappointing.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. Anyway, let's wrap this party up for the week. This is the All About the Birds Network weekly report. We're back talking, like I said in the beginning of the show, what we do best, talking Eagles, bullshitting about the Eagles and the Birds, our favorite team, the team that leads this city and runs this town. We are sponsored by Manscaped. 20% off using AAT Birds at checkout. Get you 20% off and free shipping so that your balls will thank you. It's going to be the hot summer. Take care of yourself with Manscaped. It'll really do great stuff for you. 99jersey.com. Promo code's AATBirds20. Our shop store has a 15% off sale going right now. Check it out. Get all your gear at our shop store, oddsjam.com, and Statement Games. All our sponsors. We thank you all very much. Everybody tuning in, we thank you. We are jam-packed the next 2 months. We've got so many guests lined up, reporters, podcasters, athletes, former football players. So many things coming down the pike. So make sure you're following us on Twitter and Facebook, setting those notifications on, hitting that subscribe button on YouTube. It's the only way you know when we go live is if you have those notifications turned on. And, of course, make sure you follow us all. Johnny Uleka, Johnny U, 9322, Jeff Warner NFL, Phil Stifel, Beard of Knowledge. And make sure you tune in tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The new show just debuted last week on the All About the Birds Network, Across the Pond, covering what they'll say.
Across the pitch.
Across the pitch? I did write it down. I wrote down pitch here. I can't read my own handwriting.
I can't read his handwriting.
Yeah. Across the pitch, across the pond. I say a pond because Dave's across the pond.
Yeah.
Hosted by Mike and Dave. It's all about Philadelphia Union. And they'll say Philly isn't a 4-for-4. Philly's a 5-for-5. And the Philadelphia Union, best team in the city right now. Only ones that are the most recent championship winner right there, the Philadelphia Union. Those guys know their soccer inside and out. So make sure you tune in. Mike's at the game tonight covering it in the press box for us. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of information from the game. Before we went live, they were winning 1-0 or 1-0, whatever they say in soccer terminology. Not sure what the final score was. But make sure you tune in and check them out tomorrow night right here. Again, if you have the notifications on, you'll know when we're live. Again, for Johnny, Jeff, for Chip, who's out doing some chores tonight, I'm Phil Stifel. And we get to finally say it, Jeff, or Johnny, Jeff, whoever wants to answer. We get to end it the way we like to. Go Birds.
Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? You're in luck. Our friends at Manscaped just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Complement your summer bod with a trim from the leaders in male grooming. The sun is shining and calling your name, fellas. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code AATBirds. It's time to bundle up with the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. First off, the new Performance Package 4.0 includes the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is insane, and dare I say, the GOAT of ball trimmers. Yes, I said it. The 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor and a new multifunction on-off switch and can engage a travel lock and gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Not to mention, it's waterproof. Want to take your grooming game even further to the next level? The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker to chop your worst weeds up top in your nose and ear. Seal the deal with Manscaped's liquids formulations. Before heading outside, use Crop Preserver ball deodorant to keep you on your game in the heat. Then, after trimming the lawn and whacking the weeds in the heat, give your beach balls a boost and use Crop Reviver. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0. Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort and boxers to another level. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code AATBirds at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code AATBirds at manscaped.com. Escape the shrubs and weeds this summer and shine with Manscaped.